What's up, dudes and dudes to the internet? My name's Seth, and we are back again with some more Trove. And today we're going to be doing something special. So, it's the end of the year. Happy New Year, by the way. And I thought that it would be really interesting for us to kind of talk about Trove as a whole, the things that have ended up happening recently, and most of the changes that have happened for this year. More notably, we're going to be talking about like the gem system, the fixtures, shadow towers, and stuff like that. And kind of do not only a little bit of a review, like a past review about it all, but also just talking about like my own personal opinions of the direction of this game and where it's going. Because there's a lot of concerns that lots of people have, and myself included, there's a lot of things that I want to talk about that I don't necessarily like as far as the development of this game is concerned, but usually I just kind of bite my tongue and just let it slide because of the fact that people don't want to hear all that stuff. They want to hear, you know, all the positivity and the support for this game. So before we end up getting started with all of it, I just want to be very clear about a couple things and just let you know that I love Trove. I've been playing this game for well over 2 years. I might even be at 3 years now that we're at the New Year's. I don't know. I'd have to go and look at my first video that I ended up doing on Trove because I've been playing Trove ever since. I didn't even know I was going to start doing a Let's Play series, let alone doing all the tutorials that I did that are extremely popular on the channel and everything. And just overall, I've been playing this game for so long that I'm never going to quit or ever going to get tired of it. But that doesn't mean that there aren't decisions that are made with this game that I personally have gripes with and don't really approve of. And I thought it would be interesting as kind of an end of the year thing where we get to talk about some of the things that are wrong with the game. So strap yourselves in, folks, get yourself some snacks, and most likely get yourselves ready to start yelling at me in the comment section saying that I'm an idiot just because everybody's like, I don't know, biased towards certain things, or maybe you think that, oh yeah, this is just some random guy, he's lost it, it's all gone to his head, he thinks he's like so cool that he can judge the game that's he's been playing for such a long time. I don't know where I'm going with this. I was trying to make a joke, but you'll have to also pardon me as well because I'm very sick and under the weather right now. That, however, is no excuse. I'm just going to be brutally honest in today's video. So I guess first of all, I have a little list right here of some of the topics that I want to discuss in no specific order, but we're going to talk about mastery because recently we ended up having the Adventures update come out, and suddenly Mastery got bumped up from 300 being the maximum, and all the way up to 1,000 Mastery. Now, I just want to be perfectly honest with you folks out there that are watching at home, sitting there thinking that 1,000 Mastery is actually possible. For the most part, it's not. Like, it's absolutely impossible. As of right now, I'm at Mastery 535 with almost 536, and I'm only missing a couple badges in the game, and then I have every item conceivable in the entire game. Like, there's only a handful of things that I'm missing from Mastery that maybe would get me to 540, or I would be at like 538 or something like that. I don't know, but 550 Mastery is impossible right now. All of the items that are up here in the 500 to 600 category from 550 and up are impossible, and that's why 601 Mastery and up, there's actually nothing in this tab right here. It's completely locked, and there's actually no rewards right now. They don't have any rewards, but something that most people might not know is that when you get to Mastery 300 and up, Mastery actually starts to scale, and you need more and more Mastery points in order to actually level up. So in total, to get to 1,000 Mastery points, you're going to have 25,000 Mastery. It was either 25,000 or 250,000. I think it's 25,000 because that is still equally ridiculous. Rather than having just 1,000 Mastery, you're going to have 25,000 Mastery worth of items in the game, which I know what the devs were going for, where this was supposed to be like a long-term thing, where it's like, oh, we want to make it so that we never have to bump up Mastery again. This way they could slowly just add items to the game, etc., etc. But it kind of had a bit of a backfire because now all that ended up happening with Mastery being bumped up is it made endgame players like myself feel like feel like the grind for mastery was a little bit less valuable, and also makes it so that starting players just feel, a big and bigger gap between them and people that are at the end game, especially because of the fact that a lot of the items that myself and end game players have for mastery are items that are actually unattainable, or you can only end up purchasing them from the cash shop during specific times of year. Like, there's a lot of pay to win involved in regards to the mastery. While you still can end up getting pretty high up on the board being a free-to-play player, chances are you're not going to end up getting to the top if you don't end up spending money, which is perfectly fine. That's the goal of the game. They want you to spend money, but I just think that it's a bit of an unfair system to expect players to keep playing this game up to 25,000 mastery, because seriously, there are not going to be that many items added to the game. Like, that would be like a couple years worth of Trove development before we end up actually getting all the way to the top. Maybe if we saw some new classes added to the game, which they have promised a new class in 2018. We're all hoping it's going to be a fist fighter, because everybody's been wanting that for 2 years now. But I guess better late than never pretty much should just be Tryon Worlds' slogan with this game. It's just better late than never. Also, the way we execute things is weirder than people expect. In either case, personally, I think that the mastery system being this way is not necessarily a good thing, but I do feel that a lot of the steps they ended up taking with this system are definitely better. Like, changing it so that mastery on the leaderboard was just the top 2,000 players end up getting a yellow name. I feel that that is a lot better than rewarding all of the few people that had max mastery with like a bunch of pinatas and a bunch of in-game items and stuff like that, because now it just kind of feels more like you just have higher mastery rather than it actually giving you any advantage over other players. Except for the fact that it does. Higher mastery gives your character more stats secretly, and also gives you more power rank. So in that is where there's a big problem. Because now suddenly we have a system that promotes people to pay money to get all these items really fast, so that you can not only climb up in the mastery board, but most of all, so you can end up climbing up in your power rank and your actual character strength. Yeah, so that's my big gripe with it. That's why I don't personally like it. You can leave your comments in the comment section down below whether you think the new mastery system is better or worse than the previous one. I do feel that it's a lot better than the previous mastery system, yes, but I think it would have been a lot better for them to set a proper goal for players. So maybe max mastery could have been 500 to 600, and then just leave it at that and just hold back on adding more mastery levels. I don't care how many players end up getting to max mastery, leave it at a cap, because it means that people can actually feel like, there's a goal that I can attain, and further than that, it means that people have a lot more incentive to spend money, rather than seeing that they would have to spend thousands of dollars to get to the end. They see that, I only have to spend a couple hundred and then I can actually make it. Whatever, I'll spend 20 bucks here, 20 bucks there, rather than, I'm just never going to get this, so obviously I'm going to ignore it. Speaking of power rank, the gem system. This guy's really noisy. The gem system, honestly speaking, I don't like what they ended up doing. First, we ended up having the gems become very pay to win with the Mantle of Power update a year or two ago. That was already a pretty big change for Trove, where the gems didn't exist. There was just leveling your character. You got to level 20 and that was it. And then it was all just based on gear and stuff like that, right? But then they ended up adding the Mantle of Power update, which added the gems system in general, which we all already know how bad that system is, where you go out into the world, you find these gem boxes, and then you get a random item, whether or not it's going to end up being good or not. I'm going to get out of here because these guys are being loud and annoying. But either way, the gem system is kind of hit or miss. Honestly speaking, it made a lot of people quit. I do feel that it did give a lot more incentive to Trove and actually just grinding it. Like, you got a lot more to do in the game, because potentially it's infinite. The gem system itself potentially can just go on and on and on like a Duracell battery, which is not necessarily a good thing, because it means that things are really unattainable, and thus it's like, if it's unattainable, again, we come to the same issue where do people actually want to end up spending money on a system where you potentially can never end up seeing the fruits of spending money towards the game, right? But in either case, with this system, I do feel that it was a good step in the right direction when they ended up adding it the first time. But then they ended up taking a system which was already very pay to win. Lots of people like to argue otherwise and say this game's pay to progress. No, it's pay to win. Pay to progress literally is the exact same as paying to win. Because pay to win is when you spend money, you get more powerful, thus you win at the game, and thus the term pay to win exists. I know it's an absolute shocker because for some reason people think pay to progress is any different. But in either case, the gem system was already very pay to win because of the fact that we had 9th lives and, well, lapis spugs I was going to say, but they don't really count. Just the gem boosters in general. You can buy levels on your gems, even though the 9th life is kind of a ripoff and doesn't necessarily work all the time. But in either case, it was something you could throw money at. And then for some weird reason, the devs had this fantastical idea to not only incorporate the ability to re-roll stats on a gem, which is all anybody actually asked for. All we ever wanted was the ability to change the stat on a gem to one that we wanted because of how random, that's right, it's random, the gem stats were in the first place, like health regen and max health and stuff like that rolling on gems, which health regen doesn't go on gems anymore, but you see my point. Then they ended up having this great idea to add augmenters, where suddenly you were able to force a gem from being just random stats to being the maximum potential that it could reach. So I have plenty of other tutorials on this, but long story short, if you end up having a gem at level 5, or level, what is it, like 2 or 3 stars, depending on if it's empowered or a lesser gem, and it has to have all 3 stats available, right? So that eventually it ends up having 3 squares contributed to each of the different stat values, right? In either case, that's the only way that you can end up getting an absolutely perfect gem if you end up augmenting your gems. And the augmenting system is just the most pay-to-win trash I've ever seen. Like, it really, really sucks because of the fact that they ended up taking pay-to-win and making it more pay-to-win. It's pay-to-win on pay-to-win. You're paying to level up your gems, and then you're also paying to augment your gems, and then beginners and people that don't know the game might end up leveling up or even augmenting gems while not realizing what it actually takes to get a perfect gem in the first place, and then they have to repeat the whole process and spend more money towards actually leveling it up, right? It's such a bad system, dude. Like, it's so greedy and mean. So if we go to the gem system, technically speaking, yeah, you can get all of this stuff free to play because the Bound Brilliance are going to be out of the daily login boxes, which, of course, at the end of each month, you're going to be able to buy tokens for the previous 2 months of boon boxes. Not to mention they just throw Bound Brilliance in all of the packs. This pack is not worth it, by the way. It sucks. Either case, you can pay to win Bound Brilliance. You can pay to win Flux by selling credit pouches, which helps you to buy Hearts of Darkness, and then just have Flux in general. The silver ones end up costing air dust, not air dust, just gem dust in general, I mean, like water, air, and fire, and it's 3,000 per, which is really, really steep, especially because of the fact that anybody who's actually, like, grinding out their gems, on average, is going to need that gem dust to level up their gems, let alone augment them, costing as much as it does, like 3,000 per, and all this thing really does is like 1 to 5% on a gem. It's useless. And then we got the gold one right here, the infamous Builder's Superior Focus item, which everybody knows is just garbage. Like 150,000 flux, 3 Titan Souls, which are time gated, by the way, 30 Dragonite, which potentially is another item that's either time gated or you can just buy it from the player market for absurd amounts of flux. And then, of course, Bound Brilliance, which Bound Brilliance we already talked about. In either case, this is going to end up having a chance of 1 to 15%, I've seen the highest, of augmenting up a gem. So I just stick to the brown ones. and they're the most cost effective. Like they're the most worthwhile because of that fact. Now, the other thing too is to talk about the ninth life technically is craftable. So as a free-to-play player, you could end up grinding up tons of jade clovers through your jade clover tome. Then you could get up to lapis bugs and get up to ninth lives. But it's not easy. Like it's pretty much impossible. It really is just a bad. I could only craft 8 for 212 lapis bugs, and these cost 6 horseshoes, which cost a ton of the jade clovers. Like, it's gross. The scaling is just like astronomically bad. In either case, you can augment up your gems, and personally I feel that this was a really, really poor step for Trove. Like, I think that it was a really, really great idea. As most of the things that the Trove developers end up coming up with, I actually think that they're fantastic ideas executed very poorly. So maybe it's just me. Personally, I feel that the reason this is bad is because augmenting gems did not need to be in the game. Like, it really didn't. There's no reason for it to actually be there, especially topped with the fact that U10, although it is going to end up being added to the game eventually, it's not in the game right now, so there's no real reason for us to get as powerful as we can get. And even considering the fact that we are as powerful as we can get in this game, Shadow Towers still wreck your face. So a lot of times you got to either have a whole group of people that's strong enough to help you out with it, or just use cheap tactics to end up getting through it. And then we've got the gem re-rolling item. This thing is trash because of the fact that it costs lunar souls, which are an item that is also time locked. Technically speaking, you can only get, what, like 2 of these a week if you didn't have a whole bunch of Lunar Souls stocked up like I do. Not to mention the Binding Darkness, which is all too hard to get as far as a resource is concerned. It should actually be a lot more common. It's not that it's like difficult. Lots of people actually tell me all the time, oh, I've got like so many of them. Yeah, but you're not re-rolling your gems that much then, dude, if you've got a lot of Binding Darkness. This is me saving this over weeks, like seriously. And then Isaac Cube Cthulhu, whatever, that's not really that big of a deal. But the Lunar Souls, that's bad. Especially with the fact that when you randomize the stat on a gem, it's random. You could have a magic gem that you want to make a physical gem. You roll the magic damage and it goes to max health, and then you roll it again and it goes to max health percentage, and then whoopsie daisy, now you gotta wait till next week. You wait till next week, and then it rolls back to magic damage, and then rolls back to max health. Like, it could go on and on and on. I've seen, I forget what it was. Somebody had, like, the biggest one that they ended up talking about was they rolled a stat on a gem like 27 or 30 times or something ridiculous, and it never got to the stat that they wanted. Like, that's bad. That should not be in the game, because guess what happens? Players quit. Or they don't want to end up wasting their money on any of these items or anything. Not that you can technically pay to win the contained sparks. I think that it would be a good solution for them to just flat out throw this item in the cash shop, because that would be proper pay to win, right? Have time-locked content that you can only grind so much of, or you just buy it out of the store. Or a much better solution that I think everyone would be happy with is if I could just choose the stat that I want to change a stat to. So I could just go on magic damage and tell it, I want this to be max physical damage. Problem solved. That's my 2 cents towards the gem system. Let me know what you all think in the comments down below. Is it a good system? Is it bad? Honestly speaking, from what I've seen, when they ended up adding that whole gem augmenting and stuff like that, it ended up making a lot of people quit. And then there was also the Shadow Towers, which was very short-lived, just because the Shadow Towers is something that, I don't want to get into this too much, but the Shadow Towers, I feel, is something that the developers really, really like. Like, they must love the Shadow Towers, because they constantly keep trying to update, and further than that, force players to go into the Shadow Towers, despite the fact that the majority of the players don't like Shadow Towers. It's boring, it's grindy, and it takes 5 years to get anywhere. Let alone the harder difficulties just take longer. They're not more difficult, they just take longer to die. Like seriously. And Dreadnought, though an absolutely spectacular boss and a step in the right direction as far as boss fights are concerned with Trove, does have a lot of things that do become annoying after a while. I'm talking about like its physical and magic barrier. Like, why? All it does is makes the boss fight take longer. It's not like a strategy to him or anything. But that said, it's also because I'm spoiled and we've been playing this game for a long enough time that I think that should go in the way of it being more efficient. Things being efficient, obviously, are very important to me, especially when it comes to a game that I've been grinding for years, like seriously. So, my point being with the Shadow Tower, just to say this is it, is that I wish that they would focus more on the aspects of the game that the players actually want, which is going out and adventuring, which does lead us to adventuring and fixtures. So this is another thing that I wanted to talk about, because now we've actually had a couple weeks, if not months, to actually talk about, or to mess with, not talk about, to hang out and talk with these idiots, mess around with the clue bits, the adventuring, and blah, 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 blah. Is it a good system? I think it's a fantastic idea that, again, was executed very, very poorly, because when this system ended up coming out, people immediately started looking for exploits. I personally think that the reason players started finding the quickest, easiest way to grind adventuring is because they saw how little we were getting, combined with the fact that we needed so much to go out and buy all of these items that most of them aren't really worth it. You know, like for some reason we got tons and tons of allies, which is great, but they're all 4,000 a piece. And then we've got these auras, which are absolutely spectacular. And thankfully, they're like a normal, affordable price. Like all of these allies should be 400 adventurine. And then the items and stuff like these weapons and stuff, that's just way overpriced. And the mounts themselves, these should be like 600 or 700. And Blocktron should be 5,000 to 7,000 per fragment, rather than 12,000, or just 12,000 for the entire egg. Never mind the whole dragon fragment thing. Like, that's so useless. Get it out of the game. Like, why? But in either case, that's my 2 cents towards the adventurine store anyways, because personally I feel that it was a lot of wasted potential, especially topped with the fact that with all these items being as expensive as they were, especially Blocktron, because that's pretty much the only thing everybody ended up getting before they stopped grinding adventurine altogether, is that it costs so much of your personal time to grind up the adventuring required for all these items that it gets really, really boring. And that's never a good thing. Like, that is not supposed to be the goal of a developer. A developer of a game is supposed to make things fun. Grindy, yes. Make it take 50,000 years, but make it fun, please. So we've got all these idiots, these wastes of time, where it's like defeat 300 enemies in the Cursed Vale. And you would think that, oh, that's really, really cool if I actually was out grinding the Cursed Vale, but I'm never in the Cursed Vale. Yes, you can go to an elemental world and go into the Cursed Vale or Cursed Skylands, and it is going to end up counting as a Cursed Vale biome, sure, but we got one big major problem, is that when you kill 300 enemies, for example, you're not going to want to go out and passively grind and kill 300 enemies. You're going to want to sit at a kill 30 enemy dungeon, because it's the most efficient as far as time is concerned. And then suddenly you start seeing, why would I be hanging out in U9 when the enemies die a lot easier in the lower Uber worlds, right? So therein lies my big issue with the adventurine and the adventures update as a whole, is that it so poorly did not become something that got implemented into the game to go along with grinding. It was its own separate piece of content that, to me, is just bad development. Because I personally feel that when a game ends up adding new content, it should be something balanced. It should be something that fits very well with the rest of the game. Not something like this, where if you want to grind adventurine, if you want to grind clue bits and fixtures and stuff, and we'll talk about those in a minute, you're going to have to go out of your way to do it, rather than just going out and adventuring naturally and gaining more and more adventurine. Topped with the fact that you can't accept the quests from this menu right here. So in order to get quests from these guys, you have to come back to your club world anytime a quest is completed to get another one. That's not efficient. It's bad. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And if things were cheaper, as far as the adventuring story is concerned, maybe players would have been a little bit more inclined to start donating their clubits, which is adventuring converted into clubits. The system itself already is extremely confusing for most players, so they don't even bother doing it. Try explaining clubits and adventuring to a new player. Go on, I dare you. I did the best I could in my tutorial and people are still confused. Top that with the fact that the fixtures themselves are so, like, inconsistent. Where we've got this item right here, it's a table that converts your adventurine into clubits. It's hidden behind all this stuff. Because if you have a merchant tier 3, you actually have the exact same table, but it trades more adventurine for more clubit ratio. Rather than, for some reason, like, you should upgrade to a tier 3 merchant, and then it should just change the vault. Or the vault tier 3 should be what has a better converter, rather than it being a completely separate building, because now suddenly we gotta go all the way over here to convert your adventurine, to come all the way back here and donate it into the vault. It's just not executed very well. And then there's the club experience in general, which again kind of comes with the same issue where unless you're grinding quests from your specific club that, you know, we already just talked about the quest system, you're not going to end up gaining that much experience. Like, Team Pixel has been at level 7 for a million years because everybody ended up getting all the items that they wanted out of it, ourselves included. Like, there's not really any reason or incentive to actually level up a club and to get better fixtures. Yes, kind of, because as you end up getting some of these better fixtures, it means like this one gives you more crit hit and crit damage. If we got a higher level and it ended up gaining more clubits, we could potentially end up leveling this up, thus giving everybody in the club more crit hit and more crit damage. But again, this kind of brings back to the same issue with the gem system where we're already strong enough. So where is the incentive? You know, like, where's the reason to actually do this? Let alone, players are not seeing the rewards immediately from all of this stuff. Like, if there was a club buff icon up in the corner or something, or if you ended up donating and it was like, oh, you're going to end up getting rewards or a specific rank in the club that would be just for prestige, you know, where it would just be like, you're like a cool guy or girl because of the fact that you donated as much as you did. And it just like feels, again, like a fantastic idea on paper, executed very poorly, because this was something that a lot of us expected was going to end up bringing the community back in Trove, where we were going to be able to all grind towards something and feel like a proper MMO where we were all wielding to, or working towards, not wielding, working towards a common goal. You know, and while that technically is still in the game, it's wasted by a lot of just bad decisions, like this idiot right here. Travel to the hub world and complete challenges. Challenges only show up every now and then, and this guy only gives you like 10 to 30 adventurine, the same as all of these guys can, rather than it being scaled where, because you can only do it every hour, you should get an hour's worth of adventurine grinding, which would be like 300 to 500 or something, you know? And just in general, I think if it wasn't such a waste of time to go out and get as much adventurine as needed, maybe then players would actually be doing some of these side quests while they were grinding, because you wouldn't have to spend hours upon hours each day to grind as much adventurine possible. Anyways, I don't want to go on more and more of a rant to the adventurine and stuff. Again, let me know what you all think in the comments down below about that specific topic. I would really appreciate your input on it. You know, not that I'm like a developer or have any leeway with like how the game is developed or anything. I just think that would be a good topic for discussion for us to talk about these features that have been added to the game and whether they're actually something that's good or not. I do, again, feel that the adventurine and the clubits is a fantastic idea. Yes, it really is, but it needs refinement. It needs to be changed in a way so that it's something that feels more organic, where players can do it alongside their usual gem box grinding and stuff like that. Because otherwise, we've got adventurine as a completely separate resource from everything else in the game. Why would you grind adventurine if you're a starting player and you need to grind gem dust to level up your gems? Similarly to why would you end up grinding Hearts of Darkness and items to augment your gems when you're still trying to level them in the first place? It's all separate content in chunks rather than being something that feels complete and all together, where you can grind all of it either at once or at least kind of have them mix and match together, where you end up kind of grinding two things at once, or going to the Shadow Towers will benefit you because you're going to be getting gem dust while you're actually doing it. Maybe a gem dust tome. Maybe, you know, that's the thing. There's a lot of very quick, easy solutions to all of these problems. That's the thing, is they could be, like, if they found a quick, easy, like, just, here's a gem dust tome. That already would be something where it's like, oh, okay, I can actually grind up my gem dust while I'm doing Shadow Towers. Because the other thing, too, is there's a lot of other NPCs that you can get for Adventurine, but they all just have longer quests that give the same amount of Adventurine. It's not good. Like, it's not developed right. So let's talk about the dragons here before we end up talking about the credit system. The dragons, I feel, is steadily becoming a problem. I remember talking about this. I joked with my brother in real life years ago when I was playing this game, talking about how the developers, for some weird reason, don't have any foresight. Because we've got this dragon system in place where these dragons give you stats and give you magic find, which increases your drop chance, right? The magic find in general, I have a video talking about. The magic find kind of sucks in this game. Like, it's not really, it's not a smart system. It's not developed well, where it calculates how much a player has ended up getting items and ends up rewarding a player who hasn't gotten items and stuff like that. Yeah, it's completely random. You can potentially not get any items for your entire playthrough, while a new player might end up getting a diamond dragon egg out of their first empowered gem box, and thus you want to quit, because why would you want to play a game that rewards somebody who hasn't been playing this game for more than a week? I'm not trying to sound salty or anything. I'm trying to make a point. Normally, a game will reward its old players, its more dedicated players, I should say. Not necessarily an old player, just someone who's dedicating more of their time. Usually that's what Magic Find is in every other video game in existence. Trove has its own weird, messed up Magic Find. Okay? I just wanted to be clear about that. But on top of that, you're getting more magic find out of the dragons, thus meaning that drop rates of stellar drops, for example, have to take more and more magic find before they happen. They become less common as more dragons get added to the game, and they adjust drop rates accordingly. And for some reason, the developers don't see a problem with this. Like, this was already a problem years ago when they started adding dragons once a month. Let alone now, we've got this. So many dragons. You can get over 4,000 magic find in this game on dragons alone. And, like, it's just like, come on. They need to come up with a better system before it's too late. Because if they keep on adding dragons to the game, it's just going to become more and more clunky and more bad. Because the other big thing is that each of the dragons costs the same amount of crazy resources. They cost tons of flux. They cost 300 dragon coins each. And as more dragons are added to the game, that means that you just need more dragon coins. It's not a well thought out system. And what it seems like the developers are doing is they throw proper decisions under the bus for the sake of, well, there's a cash shop. Players will just be able to buy the dragon coins, right? That'll be a perfect way for them to end up getting it. Rather than making it like the dragon challenges suck. You get like 5 dragon coins an hour or something, let alone you need like thousands of dragon coins to get all these guys. It's ridiculous. Like, seriously. And the greater dragon caches, forget about it. They cost way too much, and half the time they only end up giving you dragon coins. Now, again, there's a couple solutions that they could end up doing. I think that a dragon effigy should just be an item that you could craft in here. Maybe it costs twice as much resources or something like that, which potentially could end up being a problem if you end up getting some of the earlier dragons. Sure, but some of these guys are tough. Some of them is just not worth your time. Like, we got the spider dragon here, is one of the hardest dragons to get in the game because the developers didn't take 2 seconds to actually think about the amount of enemies that are actually required to kill in order to drop a fragment, compared to the flower dragon, where you're literally grinding thousands of sunlight bulbs. And obviously this is one of the easier dragons to get because the same drop rate chance applies for the fragments of this dragon on the spider enemies dragons, and you can only get these fragments from spider enemies exclusively, which how often do you even see those guys? Like, it's just ugh, you know, not to mention the fragment system in general. I think we can all agree is not exciting. Like, I would rather grind 1 billion spiders at the chance of getting an egg rather than getting 1 fragment and needing 5 of them. You know, like, is that just me? Not to mention the biggest problem with the entire game that would actually resolve all these issues. Nothing's tradable. All of these items, for all the craziness that Trove has, no items are tradable anymore. I don't know why they made that decision a couple years ago, where they made, like, all the Chaos Chest items, all the store items, they slowly just started making all these items untradable in the idea that it would mean that they would make more of a profit off of an individual player purchasing these items for themselves, rather than cash shop whales buying these items to share them with the free-to-play players community. There's a lot of items that even I myself would end up buying in the cash shop specifically to give away as a prize, you see. And I don't feel that it's benefiting the game in any way, shape, or form to lock out the content in what is supposed to be an online multiplayer game, where more so I would say Trove is like a single player game that you can play online with your friends. Isn't it? Because, you know, like Diamond Dragon Eggs, you can't trade those. If you could, that would resolve a lot of issues. And then just Dragon Eggs in general is going to end up being a problem, and empowered gems and gem augmenters and gem dust and everything like that. And further than that, if you're sitting there, you know, clawing your eyes out or pulling your hair out or pulling your eyebrows out thinking, dude, I don't want any of this to be tradable, it would end up ruining the game economy and destroying everything and my monopoly on everything, and just no. My ultimate solution that I personally feel would be really, really big to Trove, not only would it generate a lot more income for the game, but I think it would actually bring a lot of players back to it, is that if all of these items were tradable for credits, and if credits became an in-game resource that would just show up in your crafting inventory right here. Not necessarily a resource that you could end up getting for free, mind you. You would only be able to buy credits just out of the store, but get rid of the credit pouches altogether and make it so that we're just buying credit amounts, and then we could just trade that with other players, right? Further than that, make it so that while you might not be able to necessarily buy a dragon egg, a spider dragon egg, or spider dragon egg fragments, I should say, from another player for flux or anything, maybe it has a small cost of credits that it needs in order for you to actually trade on top of the item that the player actually wants you to trade with them. Right? So we're talking more of a system like Warframe, which is another game that I play on the channel. They are a free-to-play game, which is, they're actually one of the more popular free-to-play games. One of the most popular free-to-play games in the world, mind you. Like, these guys are big, and they know what they're doing. What that game has for a currency is that they've got Platinum, which is pretty much the equivalent to credits in Trove. That is the only item that you can actually buy for real money out of their cash shop, outside of a couple vanity items that you can exclusively buy for money, but for the most part, you're just buying Platinum, right? And that's the in-game currency. That's what free-to-play players trade with, because free-to-play players will grind their heart's content to get these really rare items that they then end up selling to players that are pay to win and don't necessarily want to grind the items themselves. Trove could definitely benefit from having this system in place, where credits would become a tradable resource, if not being a requirement in order to trade some of the rarer items in the game. Because it means that you would be able to trade credits with a player for any item that you want, while also potentially making some flux on the side as a secondary resource that players would want, because of the fact that almost everything costs flux to end up crafting it anyways, right? In either case, folks, we're at about 40 minutes here. That's pretty much everything that I wanted to discuss, and that's my big crescendo at the end to just say it should be a possibility. I think that that would end up resolving a lot of Trove's issues if everything became tradable, and if it was for credits, because then the game itself would end up generating massive amounts of income because so many players would just be so tempted to drop down a couple bucks to end up getting some credits to be able to buy that mount that they want or that dragon that they want but don't want to necessarily grind. You know, it would make things a lot more approachable for players. It would make the gem system, because maybe some items in the gem augmenting or gem gem booster items and stuff like that, those could be tradable as well, and just make everything tradable. Just put a little bit of a credit price on it, or in general just make credits a new currency so that it would end up being something that you would trade with players naturally because of the fact that you would be able to buy so many things out of the store, and then it would kind of combine with, oh, do you want to buy this for credits or do you want to buy this for flux? Or make it so that flux is something that is a resource that maybe you exclusively have to grind, while credits become the only item that's tradable. That would be a very interesting idea that I don't know if they would be able to execute properly. And that's kind of the biggest thing, is is any of this going to end up making any difference to the game? Are our opinions in this video going to make any difference? I don't know, but I'm hoping that enough of you are going to end up enjoying this video, enjoying the things that we've discussed today. And overall, I hope that you enjoy the game for what it is, the gameplay, you know, the game itself. I still love Trove. I really do, and that in itself is why I'm so passionate about the project and why I feel that it's straying a little bit too far from the end game goal and ultimately is making players quit, which is something that I don't want, because I want more people to be playing this game, because I want more people to positively support and build this game up, because I love this game. I've been playing it for such a long time. It's such an awesome game. It really, really is. But it feels like such a waste of potential when there's so many other games out there that do these very, very simple things so much better than this game because of a few bad decisions by the developers or the CEO or whoever's making the decisions for this game. That's my opinion as a person who's been playing this game for years. Is it something that is going to end up making a difference? Is it something that you all agree with? Let me know in the comment section down below. But otherwise, I hope you have yourselves a fantastic day and a happy new year. Thanks for watching, folks. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content. That's also going to build up loyalty points to my merch store. Links are in the description for that, where you can buy this shirt and a bunch of other stuff. And for the fans that want to go the extra mile, you can always donate to me for absolutely free with GawkBox. Check links in the description for that. However, just a heads up, it doesn't work for everybody in Europe. I wish it did, but for some reason it doesn't. Have yourselves a fantastic day, though, everybody. Sayonara, and stay epic.